Would you please state your first name, your occupation, your family, and some of your interests?
My name is Janie. I'm an LPN. I have 5 children and a husband.
Where did you go to school at?
Paxton High School and Florida City School.
Do you remember any certain teachers or special events such as prom or a football game?
I remember Miss Baldwin, who was a home economics teacher, who probably taught me more about being a lady and female than anybody else I've ever known. She was a very classy lady and a wonderful teacher, and I was a cheerleader.
So you went to a lot of games.
Yes, I did.
Do you remember anything about your prom?
My first prom, I didn't care that much about. My second prom, I was married and they wouldn't let me attend the prom because I was married.
Wow. Describe your school. Was it public or non-public? Was it segregated? And did you have a dress code?
There was no black people went to school here when I went to school. I don't know if you call it I guess it was segregated. And I love Paxton.
We didn't have a dress code back then.
You didn't have a dress code, but you knew that if it was above the knee, you could go home and change clothes. I mean, that was just, you didn't do it. The cheerleaders' dresses went to the skirts went to their ankles. And the year that we brought them up to below the knee, they threatened to dismiss us all from school.
So the whole school would be dismissed?
No, we would have been, the cheerleaders would have been gone, but we fought it out and won.
Wow. Tell me about your personal experience with segregation.
I don't know that I really knew what segregation was. I just knew that the blacks went to one school and the whites went to another school. I was raised by a black lady. My mother worked. She took care of us. I loved her probably as much, if not more, than my own mama did. I played with her kids. We went back and forth to her house. So I really didn't know what segregation was for a long time.
So to you, it really wasn't anything. It was just something that other people were on to say.
That's it. It was just part of life, and I didn't know that much about it. I knew that my daddy drew a sharp line. I mean, you could play with him and you could talk to him, but you couldn't touch him.
Mm-hmm.
And don't ask me why. I have no idea. That was just my daddy.
Tell me about a good time during the 1960s. Why is this such a wonderful memory to you?
Probably because I got married in 1962. And I graduated in 1963. It was just, I guess my marriage was the best thing. Of course, it would have helped if I'd been over 16, but I got married in 62 and graduated in 63.
But do you think that, like, if you were to go back, do you think that's, like, looking over your whole life, do you think that's one of the best things in your life?
Yes.
You don't regret it at all?
No, none whatsoever.
Do you remember where you were on November 22nd, 1963, when President Kennedy was assassinated?
I was on Long Island, New York. We lived in an apartment. Lloyd was in the military. And I was vacuuming the room that we lived in. And I had a radio in my pocket with the ear things in. And I remember when they said Kennedy had been assassinated, I hit the floor crying because I knew something bad was wrong. And of course they put all military on. They couldn't leave the barracks. Everybody had to stay where they were. So I spent 2 weeks in an apartment by myself, and for somebody from Lorella and Paxton to be in New York by yourself, I was terrified.
And Paxton being such a small community where everybody knows everybody and they help each other, and then being up there.
I knew nobody. I knew no one whatsoever. I was terrified out of my mind. I sat in that room for 2 weeks. I did not go outside.
What would have happened if you ran out of food? Would they have brought you food, or?
No, I'd have just done without, because I would not, people up there are totally, it is a different world from what we live in down here. Where if I needed something, I would call somebody would have helped. Up there, they just look at you like you're fixing to snatch my purse, you're fixing to stab me, that it's a whole different world. And back then, it was even worse. I went to the store one time, and the people made so much fun of the way I talked. Little southern girl, can't you talk any better than that? And I said, let me tell you one thing. I may be from the South, and I may have a funny accent because I'm up here, but my mama taught me that you don't make fun of people no matter how they talk, or how they look, or how they act. And I won't ever come back in your store again. And I left just bawling my eyes out. But I wasn't nothing but a baby. And now, they had a whole different encounter.
Well, it's still, even then, it's good that you stood up for yourself instead of letting them push you around. Because there's a lot of people that they wouldn't care. They would just, push it off. And yet you had the courage to stand up and tell them.
Well, they hurt my feelings. And when I get my feelings hurt, I get mad. And when I get mad, I get ready to fight. And I just thought it was rude. People in the South are not raised to be rude for no reason at all. People up there are born rude and relapse. They're just not nice. I dealt with that when I was a nurse after I went to nursing school. I dealt with them coming down here and being rude, and they were rude to the wrong person.
How did the Civil Rights Movement affect your life?
I don't really think it did in any way whatsoever. I was raised with the blacks right up the street from us, so I mean, I was never mean to them, they were never mean to me. The only time that I ever realized that there was segregation, because we didn't have money enough that we traveled. I went to South Florida one summer down to my aunt's house and rode the bus. And I had to sit in the back of the bus, which scared me to death, because there was maybe 3 white people on the bus and the rest of them were black. And they would just look at you, and the look would just scare you to death. And they were rude, and they talked ugly to you, and I've never been as glad to get back home in my life. That was the only real thing and I thought, why would you treat anybody like that? I never treat anybody any different. I don't care if they're pink with blue hair. I still don't treat them any different. And they really did. They were really ugly to you.
How do you think this affected our country?
Sometimes I think segregation was probably not good, but it being forced on everybody, I think that it could have been taken slower, or just not been a forced issue. I don't remember there being any difference at Paxton when the blacks came to Paxton, when they went to school together. They were all raised together right here together. Now, how they reacted in other places, I mean, it was like people treated it like it was only in the South. It wasn't. It was more in the North than it was in the South. In New York, you've got, up there they hate everybody. The Jews hate the Mexicans hate the blacks. Everybody hates everybody up there. The prejudices were more in the North than it ever was in the South, because most of us grew up with them. We grew up around them. They went to school, we went to school. I never thought I was any better than them, and the ones that I grew up with, I don't guess ever thought they were any better than me. But I think that they have pushed this and played it until it's a mess.
So even us living so close to Alabama and all the stuff that was happening in Birmingham, you don't think that it affected us?
I never even knew it was going on. I mean, other than seeing it in the paper or something, and you wonder, well, what in the world is that all about? No, I don't think it really did affect us. I don't think it really affected this area. Because, like I said, we all lived here. I've been where I live, right down from what was called Flowers View, or what's called Flowers View, for 48 years. I've never seen any difference. I really haven't.
Do you serve in the military, or did you serve in the military in Vietnam?
No.
Did you lose someone in your close circle in this conflict?
No, my brother was there, but I didn't have anybody that died in Vietnam.
How would you define violence and civil disobedience?
How would I describe it?
How would you define nonviolence and civil disobedience?
Oh, I don't understand much about that. Civil disobedience is where instead of discussing stuff, you get out and you throw bottles and you just make a mess. And I've never understood why when they have a civil disobedience, like in neighborhoods and all, you destroy your own people. And that's never made a lot of sense to me. I just don't really understand it.
How did you feel about the mission of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.? How has this movement changed us?
It's another thing that I was never really impressed with. I think he was doing his best to help people, but I think he hurt a lot more people than he helped at the time. And I think he preached nonviolence, but somebody was pushing violence. And
Is this your?
You can restart. How did the television change your time in your family life?
that's probably the worst thing that has ever been done is television. To start with, I can remember when we got our first one, it was just a huge box that rolled all the time, and we just sat there like in a dead stare. After I got older, it took up way too much time because you were too busy watching soap operas to do this, that, and the other. And then when you finally get control of it, like my child does not watch TV during the week. He has school to do. And my other kids did not watch TV. I think it promotes too much violence, too much sex. Commercials are ridiculous. I mean, you sit there with the thing and a commercial comes on and you turn it off because there's either someone showing everything or there's somebody killing something or there's something, and there's too much violence on it.
Even shows or TV shows and movies today, for little kids, and they're supposed to be rated G, yet they have all these things that, little kids don't understand them, but us as adults, if we go to watch the movie too, or young adults, we know what it means, and it's a bad image that kids are getting.
It is, and another thing about it is they're pushing an agenda. You have a movie on and you think, oh, this is a kid's movie, and what it is they're pushing global warming. Or they're pushing, they're cutting all the trees down, or it's something like that. Or there's words used in there that I pick up on that Eric doesn't. And yeah, they rate them G, but then they push their own agenda on the kids. And my granddaughter was there one day, and there was a spider, and he jumped on my leg, dead spider. And she went to screaming, "How dare you kill Mother Nature?" I said, "How dare Mother Nature get on my leg?" Not going to play that, but they do. They push their own agenda as far as the climate, as far as the green stuff and all that. It's ridiculous.
Like Happy Feet, they were talking about how they were fishing in the penguin area. And the penguins have the food.
Yeah, and like I said, they're pushing an agenda with all the kids' movies now, and it's like they're putting this in their mind, and then they're going, well, let me tell you something, that lasted about 5 minutes with Eric. Now, whether or not it comes back later and he thinks about it, but I think it's ridiculous. Give me Daffy Duck. Give me Mickey Mouse.
The
But
classics.
Yeah, not that mess.
Mhm. What do you want me to know about this time, and how were you changed by it?
About this time.
Like the Civil War, like if there was one thing about it that you would want to tell me that could, influence my life and help me be a better person, what would you tell me?
Get along with people. Pick your battles. There's no need in arguing and fussing over something that there's nothing to. And I have tried to do that with my children. Pick your battles. Treat people with respect. Get an education. That is the most important thing in the world. Don't listen to other people. Make up your own mind. Make your own decisions. Don't let people push you into making decisions that you don't believe in.
Do you see any situation in our society today that need to be addressed?
It's the economy, stupid. If somebody doesn't do something about our president and his spending habits, we're going to go down the tubes. We're going fast. You can't afford gas to go to the store on. Once you get there, you can't afford the groceries. We owe $14 trillion. Trillion dollars. Somebody has got to do something.
And it seems like every day it's another $100 million that's just going down the drain.
Or $2 billion for this, or $2 billion for that. You know what? It's got to stop. Because it's killing us. It really is. And then they say, well, let's don't cut this and let's not cut it all. Cut everything across the board. I will survive. I was born and raised in the country. You know what? Those people that do not try to help themselves, there's no way that you're going to do anything but support them for the rest of their lives.
We know how to grow crops and how to
Doggone right.
we know how to jar them. We know all that stuff.
We're a country. We can take care of ourselves.
What improvements would you make, and what impact can a student make on implementing changes in our own society?
Get an education, go to college, run our country the way it should be run. Get into politics. Work hard and do what's right for the country. Because if y'all don't do it, it ain't gonna matter. I'm 65. 40 years from now, I'll be a memory, but you gonna still be paying. So that's all I can say is get an education and change it.
Is there anything else you want to say before our interview is over? Okay. Well, thank you, Ms. Weeks.
I love you, baby.